Hello and welcome to the next lesson. So we're going to quickly go over relative age of rocks. We kind of went over it with index fossils in the last section, so I'm going to go really quickly over this one. Okay, so for relative ages, a good thing to think about is like if you are 13 years old, that is your absolute age. If you are younger than your brother, that is your relative age. That's your age relative to your brother. You need a comparison point for a relative age. So that's why we look at index fossils. Those are the comparison point for that rock layer. So what we do with relative ages of rocks is we're going to match up rock layers. So we can look at G here, and they've already matched this rock layer up with this one over here. That's what the colors are indicating. So they've found fossil evidence or whatever evidence they found. Normally it's index fossils to be able to compare and contrast these rock layers and find the correct ages for each one. So it says index fossils there. They're an important thing in relative aging. So there's also something we call the law of superposition. So the law of superposition states that in an undisturbed rock area, the oldest rocks are on the bottom and the youngest rocks are on the top. The important thing to note here is that it's an undisturbed section of rocks. Okay, so when we get certain disconformities, we'll talk about unconformities in the next slide. That's going to change the law of superposition there. So in an undisturbed layer of rock, we get the law of superposition, where the oldest is on the bottom and the youngest is on the top. So I talked about unconformities. That's me saying rock layers don't always line up. It's just a scientific term for that. So in this section here, D is going to be the oldest rock layer, A is going to be the youngest. So here we're going to talk about unconformities. So this is where it kind of screws up that law of superposition. So we have angular unconformities or just unconformities. They were lined up parallel originally, so just straight like this, these three right here. And then they got tilted due to most likely plate tectonics pushing those rocks like this. You can see it with the Garden of the Gods. That's a really good example of that. They were originally sideways. They got tilted like this, and then new rock was deposited on top of that. So in this unconformity, if it was tilted to the right, then this is going to be the oldest section. This is going to be the youngest section. Well, technically, this will be the youngest section. So that's important to know that we have unconformities. A nonconformity is when sedimentary rock is deposited on an underlying rock layer. It doesn't have to be igneous. It can be metamorphic as well. So right here we see these rock layers, and then at some point there was like a hole in the ground or something, a fault line. Some sedimentary rock was deposited down in there, and it really screwed up the aging process of these rocks. So this sedimentary area is probably younger than these rocks right here, just because it was deposited in there. And then we will talk about disconformities. So a disconformity is where older rock down here will start parallel. It will be worn away. So right here it's showing that it's been worn away. And then newer rock is deposited on top of that. So the important thing to take away from a disconformity is that this area of rock may be much, much older than this area up here. We just can't tell because the top has been weathered away. So that is all you're going to need to know for the quiz. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, go ahead, let me know. Like always, text, call, or email. And I will see you in the next video.